The Lover's Pentacle 4, Chapter 5. The Chariot. Instead of swimming, Rodrigo ended up settling down beside Bruno to listen to the story, and he ended up dozing off to the sound of Bruno's hypnotic, sweet, even voice. And with the sun setting over the horizon, Bruno closed the book. The light was too low for him to continue reading, and he dusted himself off before removing his shirt and pants, and the speedo he was sporting left very little to the imagination. "Honestly, Bruno, put on some swimming trunks," remarked Rebecca, frowning. Bruno opened his mouth to retort, but he chose to remain silent, and his sister couldn't go a single day without criticizing him. Bruno took Carina's hand to beckon her to swim with him, and he started running while Carina struggled to keep up. And he slowed down his pace to match his girlfriend's running speed, and Carina stopped when her feet touched the freezing water. "Come on, Carina, the water's awesome," said Bruno before walking deeper into the ocean. And Carina attempted to fight against the cold, and when a cold wave struck her chest, trembling, she said, "Jesus, I can't." Bruno splashed his way towards his girlfriend, and he assisted her in getting out of the ocean. And the waves were quite unruly, and Carina, feeling defeated, went to sulk beside her mother. And Rodrigo brought out a football in order to play with Bruno, and the friends frolicked in the ocean with enthusiasm, and other local jocks joined in their games. And Carina wrapped herself in a towel, and she trembled for a few minutes until she warmed herself up. And she switched the disc on the boombox for something more hyper, and she danced by herself for a bit until her cousin George took pity on her. So he went to dance with Carina. George was a 14-year-old twin son of Mira, and Mira had never married, and her son George and her daughter Jennifer had two different fathers. And George didn't particularly like to dance, and so he fancied that it was a skill worth honing in order to make picking up girls easier. The family watched the cousins dancing with mild amusement, and the peace was broken when the football struck Carina's thigh. "Motherfucker!" screeched Carina angrily, and she took the football before asking, "Who threw it?" "Sorry, cousin," said Rodrigo, hiding behind Bruno. "I told Bruno to go long, but he wasn't able to catch it." Carina took careful aim before throwing the football, and Bruno caught it, and he was pleasantly surprised by his girlfriend's arm strength. "Carina, go long," said Bruno, raising the football. "I don't want to play," said Carina, shaking her head. "Suit yourself," said Bruno before sinking beneath the waves, and when he rose to the surface, he ran away yelling, "Shark! Shark!" The men ran out of the water screaming like peacocks, and once they were all outside, Bruno got a hearty laugh at their expense. "Not funny, Bruno," barked Rodrigo, punching Bruno on the shoulder. "But I did see a shark, Rodrigo. Look, there goes his fin," said Bruno, pointing at the ocean. And sure enough, there was indeed the fin of a shark. And with a shark roaming about the beach, it was officially time to go home, and the men started packing up everything with the exception of Barbara's husband, Horatio. And even back when he was young, he wasn't known for his physical strength, and even raising a plate was a struggle. And the family lumbered back towards the car, and Bruno gave a goodbye hug to his nieces. And Rebecca hugged everyone, but not Bruno. And Rebecca realized that it was going to take a while to restore the non-existent bond she had with her brother. And when she had interfered in Bruno's racy relationship, he had acted indifferently. And he was neither angry nor surprised to discover that his girlfriend was cheating on him. And perhaps he had only pretended to be indifferent while he exploded on the inside. And with Bruno, Rebecca never knew. Rebecca felt like she no longer had the moral authority to meddle in her brother's affair. Her marriage was over, and even now she was still adjusting to her new reality. She drew comfort in the fact that the girls had never been close to their father. The man had always wanted a son, but she had given birth to daughters. And she returned to the hotel, and she opened her computer to read the latest intel that her spy had gathered on Carina. And just last week, Carina had spent the night dancing with Kane and Malik. And if Carina wanted to go dancing, why didn't she take Bruno? Asked Rebecca. And why did my brother allow it? Maybe there was a football game he didn't want to miss, said Olivia, answering her mother. I am talking to myself, pay me no mind, said Rebecca. Suit yourself, Mom, said Olivia. I just think that it wouldn't kill you to get to know someone like a normal person. Instead of wasting money on a spy, why don't you get an early head start on a Christmas wish list, said Becky, giving her mother a list of everything she wanted. Rebecca decided to give Carina the benefit of the doubt. And relationships were different today, and it was normal for a woman to go fool about with other men while her boyfriend stayed at home doing nothing. No, this wasn't normal. Rebecca spent the night going back and forth, and she couldn't decide whether she liked Carina or not. As a person, she seemed alright, but as her brother's girlfriend, she was a little too libertine for Rebecca's taste. She also didn't understand what was Carina's appeal. She was short, she was overweight, her hair was a wild mess, her face was ordinary. Everything about her was ordinary. And yet Carina had not just one, but 3 hot guys wrapped around her little finger. At the end of the day, what Rebecca felt for Carina was envy. Carina was brave enough to do all the things that Rebecca secretly wanted to do. And Carina was a self-confident, independent woman that didn't spend her every waking hour attending her man. Rebecca had dedicated all her life to her husband, and then that man at the drop of a hat had left her for another woman. And while Rebecca thought of Carina had completely forgotten about Rebecca's existence. And since Rebecca lived in another state, Carina considered the woman a temporary hiccup. She only needed to tolerate her presence for one more day. And now that she had finished entertaining Rebecca and her 2 brides, Carina could finally go on with her life. As soon as she got home, she went to shower, and so had gotten inside everywhere, so she felt extra icky. And she washed her curly mane of hair, and while she did, she brushed it. And only in its wet form could she calm its fury. And when she was younger, she used to straighten it, and this day she left it long and wild. And it fascinated the boys, her crazy mane of hair. And how are the twins? Asked Bruno, joining Carina in the shower, and he playfully toyed with what he considered Carina's twins. You really are into me, aren't you, Bruno? Asked Carina, caressing her boyfriend's face. Isn't it obvious? A man's body is incapable of lying, said Bruno before poking Carina's back with his instrument. And Carina giggled before turning around, and the 2 shared a kiss before interlocking into the maiden embrace. And their engagement was cut short by Carina's stomach rumbling, and Bruno increased his rhythm to finish quicker, and it had been a short but satisfying bout. And they had dinner after finishing their shower, and while watching a terrible movie, Carina suddenly felt the urge to go out, and she sprang out of the couch. She got dressed in a strapless rhinestone red dress and a red leather coat. I am going out, Bruno, said Carina. Do you want me to come with you? Asked Bruno, sitting up. No, I will be alright by myself, said Carina, and she fancied that if Bruno truly wanted to come, he would have gotten dressed, or maybe he wanted her to beg him for company. Changing her mind, she said, You can come, but only if you truly want to. Do you want to come? Bruno narrowed his eyes. He couldn't decipher Carina's intention. Was this a test? Was this a power play? Should he go? Should he stay? Whether he wanted to go or not was irrelevant, and after overthinking such a simple question, he chose to go with Carina. Rebecca was watching. He shouldn't give his sister more reasons to antagonize Carina, and he dressed himself quickly in a ripe jeans and a brown turtleneck. The pair got inside Bruno's convertible, and Rodrigo jumped into the back seat of their car, and nobody had invited him, but he wanted to be a third wheel. And they rode to Space Club, and this was the place to go to if you were in a techno mood. Since it was Thanksgiving weekend, the place was packed with tourists, and most of them from New York. And the roof was decorated with false climbing vines and their disco balls. And in a raised stage there was a live band, and Carina giggled when she recognized the guitarist, and he was Jack Kane's father. He was a fair Rasta that not let his stylist to anyone who asked. And based on his expression, he looked more nervous than happy to be there. And he was a lanky, middle-aged, short man that was physically the antithesis of his son, or meaning the complete opposite. Carina got drinks at the bar before hopping her way towards the front stage, and she pouted when she realized that they were already playing the encore, and the live musicians were replaced by a DJ, and with no concert to watch, she hopped her way back to her boyfriend to dance. and Bruno was in the same spot she had left him, and he sat down at the bar to nurse his drink. And she took his hand to get him to dance, and after dancing for an hour, Bruno's knee failed him, and he would have fallen if Rodrigo hadn't been nearby to support him. "I'm fine," said Bruno, straightening himself, and he attempted to walk, but he ended up limping in spite of himself. "No, you're not. If you were tired, you should have stayed home," said Rodrigo. I felt fine," lied Bruno. He added, giving a fake smile. "That one beer I had probably numbed me to the searing knee pain." "That doesn't sound right," said Carina, raising an eyebrow. And Rodrigo and Carina hauled Bruno's brawny self to the bar, and Bruno sat on a stool and was stretching his bad leg over a seat, and now that he was no longer thinking, he became aware of the stabbing pain in his knee. "Did it pop?" asked Rodrigo, worried. "I don't know," said Bruno, rubbing his knee. "If it did, I didn't hear it. The music is too loud." Carina manifested with an ice bag she had gotten from the bartender, and she placed it over Bruno's knee. It felt hot, and only time would tell if it had truly popped or not. "I think we better go home," said Carina. "I am fine," barked Bruno. "Fine, whatever, we can stay," said Carina, echoing his tone. "God, you yell more than my toddler patients." Carina and Rodrigo attempted to go back to having fun, though they felt awful about dancing and hopping about while Bruno was sitting there pretending to look at his cell phone. Bruno eventually turned around to face the bartender, and he drank his beer in one gulp before giving a melancholic smile. He hadn't counted on his stupid knee failing him. It didn't matter how hard he worked out, his body was still a flawed, unreliable instrument. "Is the old sports injury still giving you a hard time?" asked the bartender. "Do I look like an athlete to you?" barked Bruno caustically. "No," said the bartender stoically, and he added tentatively, "Another pint?" "No, I am a man that prefers to keep his wits about him," said Bruno, refusing the drink. "I could go for some ice cream. Do they serve desserts in this venue?" "No," said the bartender, narrowing his eye. And then he said, "Pawn to E4. "Pawn to E5, said Bruno. Now the man needed a chessboard to play the game. Carina drew near to eavesdrop on the conversation, and she raised an eyebrow when she saw that the two men speaking in code. She didn't understand the nature of the conversation, and even so, she did like that Bruno no longer looked bored. And she went back to dancing with her cousin, and sadly Rodrigo had managed to fish a willing partner, so he was no longer within sight, and with nobody else to dance with, Carina peacocked until a man came to dance with her. She danced with a couple of unfamiliar faces, and she would change the dance partners every 2 songs to avoid controversy, and she eventually bumped into a familiar face. "Hey, Carina, fancy meeting you here," said Oberon. "Oberon, what are you doing here?" yelled Carina. "I work here, or don't you remember me throwing your drunk ass out of the club?" asked Oberon. "Obviously no," said Carina, laughing while Oberon spun her about. "Did you ask him?" yelled Oberon. "Did I ask him what?" asked Carina, not remembering. "For the trio. I want to come between you and Bruno," barked Oberon. She was worried about how Bruno would react to such an indecent proposal, and she opened her dance stance to blow the most physical distance between herself and Oberon, and she turned her eyes to look at Bruno, and he waved happily at her before returning to his chess match. And the moment of distraction left him blind to an obvious checkmate, and Bruno slammed his hands against the table before demanding a rematch. "If you don't ask him, I will," said Oberon, starting to march towards Bruno, and he had a playful smile painted on his face. "Please, please don't," begged Carina, holding onto his arm. "Try and stop me," said Oberon as he continued to march towards Bruno. Carina planted her heels on the floor, but she was dragged towards Bruno, and Bruno, laughing, said, "Ha, I finally won one." "Awesome, good for you," said Oberon as he started to sit down, and he ended up sitting on Bruno's leg that had stretched over the chair. "Motherfucker," screamed Bruno, holding onto his knee. I'm sorry," said Oberon apologetically. "Did it pop?" asked Carina, worried. I kid," said Bruno, laughing. "Not funny, man," said Oberon, shoving Bruno. "Here, have my drink," said Bruno, offering his free drink to Oberon. "It was on the house, but I don't really want it." "Don't mind if I do," said Carina, gulping down the free drink. "I had never seen a woman drink as much as you do," said Oberon, shaking his head sadly. "And I'm not even buzzing," said Carina proudly. "Carina wanted me to ask you if you want to do a trio," said Oberon, finally working up the courage to ask Bruno. With you? Asked Bruno. Yes, said Oberon, taking Bruno's left hand, and they were coarse, big, strong, masculine. FYI, I didn't want Oberon to ask you anything. I am quite happy with the current arrangement. But if you're bored, I am an open-minded individual, said Carina, twirling a curl from her wild mane. That's the end of that chapter. Bye-bye and God bless.